There was no school, no hospital, no doctor, not even any medicine. So how did people live? Well, we weren't always so unhealthy. It was only after the Industrial Revolution that people started living healthier lives. In the year 1800, the average life expectancy was just 36.4 years. This is because there were lots of diseases and almost no effective treatments. There were no vaccines or antibiotics. Surgery was risky as there were no anesthetics, meaning no pain-relieving medicines. For example, farmers who consumed certain plants might have observed that these plants relieved their aches and pains. People ate fresh foods that were grown locally and were in season. For example, vegetables can be fermented to make pickles or fruits can be fermented to make wine. Doctors were needed to deliver babies, set broken bones and treat serious injuries. And this was done through midwifery and barber surgery. Midwifery is the practice of assisting with childbirth, and it was usually done by women. After all, humans have survived without doctors for hundreds of thousands of years. We can do it today as well. So the next time you feel unwell, try a home remedy. It might just help you get rid of that cough or cold once and for all. Barber surgery is a form of surgery performed by barbers. While setting bones, they would also perform other medical procedures such as bloodletting. Bloodletting is the process of withdrawing blood to cure or prevent illnesses. Fermentation prevents spoilage and extends the shelf life of food. Also, fermented foods are more easily digestible. For example, fermented vegetables have more vitamins and are easier to digest. So people didn't just eat fresher food, they also ate healthier food. They also preserved their food properly. All of this meant that they rarely suffered from nutritional deficiencies. So how did they preserve their food? Through fermentation. This knowledge was then passed down from one generation to the next. Another way was through trial and error. For example, people might have observed that certain plants had an effect on their bodies. So they might have studied these plants to understand which plant parts had the effect and how much of it was needed to relieve a specific illness. This type of knowledge helped people treat illnesses for thousands of years, and if someone did survive surgery, they would die from infection. The only treatment for most illnesses was medicine. Before that, people were healthier and they lived longer too. For example, the fast, processed foods that are so common today were invented during this time. These foods were made using new machines and were quickly adopted by the masses. Illnesses were treated, lives were saved, and people were generally healthier. So what went wrong? Well, it all comes down to one word: progress. As we advanced, we started living healthier and riskier lives. This led to more illnesses, and ultimately, we became dependent on doctors and medicines. The problem is that these foods were not healthy at all. They caused nutritional deficiencies, which led to illnesses. People needed medicine to treat these illnesses. Similarly, the living conditions in cities were unhygienic, and this led to the spread of infectious diseases like cholera and tuberculosis. Again, people needed medicine to treat these illnesses. And thus, medicines became an integral part of our lives. But how? What was so different about their lives? Let's find out. In order to understand how people lived before doctors, we must first know how doctors and medicines came into being. You see, the idea of treating illnesses with medicines has been around for a very long time. People have been consuming plants and natural substances for their medicinal qualities for thousands of years. But it was only in the 19th century that people started becoming dependent on medicines. You might be wondering why. Well, let me tell you, life expectancy is the average age a person is expected to live. But the Industrial Revolution changed all of that. People started living healthier lives and medicines became a necessity. Before that, people used home remedies to treat their illnesses. Home remedies are natural treatments using plants and other substances. For example, people used willow bark to relieve pain and fever. Today we know that willow bark contains a substance called salicin. Salicin is the main ingredient in aspirin, one of the most common painkillers in the world. Other examples include the use of honey to treat sore throats and coughs. Honey is still used today as it boosts the immune system. But how did people know about these treatments? Well, through something called empirical knowledge. Empirical knowledge is knowledge gained through experience or observation rather than studying. Another thing that helped people was the fact that they ate healthier foods. Fermentation is a process where microorganisms like bacteria and yeast are used to preserve food. This means that people did not need medicines, but they did need doctors. These practices might seem unhygienic to us today, but they were actually quite effective. But it doesn't have to be this way. We can always go back to the basics, eat healthier, use home remedies whenever possible, and rely less on medicines.